Oh, indeed. Is it true that you've acquired a house? If so, I'd be interested in living with you. Unexpectedly, my mother-in-law started uttering such an absurd proposition over the phone. She must have caught wind of our recent home purchase from my husband. I could discern my sister-in-law's amused chuckles in the background. Does she believe her laughter can go unnoticed? Honestly, I have no desire to reside with my mother-in-law and the others. I thought my husband shared the same sentiment. However, the fact that they've been informed about our new house. Could it be that they're assuming we'll be living together? The idea that my beloved husband might be in cahoots with them fills me with a bit of apprehension. Yet, I have no intention of yielding to their wishes. Are they trying to manipulate me? If that's their game, I'll reverse the roles. Reflecting on all my past tribulations, I pledged revenge against them. I am Kate Thompson, 30 years old, working as an ordinary employee at a major financial corporation. I married my husband Joe 3 years ago, and though we don't have children yet, there's a valid reason for that. A decision we both took seriously. Joe and I are fully committed to our careers, toiling daily with the aim of advancing. Once our professional lives stabilize, we plan to build our own home and create a stable environment for raising children. We've agreed to revisit the topic of having kids once our careers settle down. This was a decision we made earnestly, sharing our genuine feelings and thoughts. We do aspire to have children eventually, and now, as we prepare for that, I find myself recalling all my past struggles. Then, one day, I successfully executed a well-planned project at work, and my promotion was officially confirmed. While my salary was already sufficient, the promotion brought even more comfort to our lives. On the other hand, Joe, although not promoted, received a substantial salary increase due to his years of service. With both our incomes on the rise, I felt it was time to turn our long-held dream into reality. So I broached the topic with Joe. Joe, I want to talk to you. Over the past year, both of us have had stable incomes. I think it might be time to consider getting our own home. What do you think? Oh, is it time already? From his excited voice, I could tell Joe was thrilled. Actually, I've been thinking about it too, but since I haven't been promoted yet, I felt a bit hesitant to bring it up. Don't worry about that. It's not like only one of us needs to earn money. I was thinking it might be okay to build our home in my name. Really? Well, you do earn more now. If you're okay with it, let's build our home in your name. All right, let's proceed with that. Let's go see some model houses on our next day off. Sounds great. Let's go. We shouldn't miss this opportunity. I really feel grateful for choosing Joe at times like this, as we share the same values. The following week, we made an appointment to view model homes as planned. We looked at various types of houses, expanding our vision for our own home. On weekends, we began creating simple floor plans together, researching online. During a recent visit to a construction company, they suggested that instead of leaving everything to them, it's better if we create our own image for a more satisfying home. So Joe and I started building that image. However, neither of us has much knowledge of architecture or design. Even with research, it takes time to put it into practice. While taking breaks, we continued working, and then the doorbell rang. I thought it was a delivery, but when I opened the door, my mother-in-law was standing there. Unexpectedly, huh? Mother, what brings you here so suddenly like this? My mother-in-law sometimes visits our place without notice. She glared at me and, without a word, took off her shoes and went into the house on her own. I'm here, Joe. Huh, Mom? What's up? Surprised by his mother's call, Joe showed a startled reaction. Did you have some business around here? To Joe's question, his mother looked a bit perplexed. Yes, I told Kate about it over the phone a little while ago, but it seems Joe didn't know. I see. Maybe Kate forgot to tell me. Seems like it. Kate, even though she's still young, has a terrible memory. That's not true, Mom. It's not forgetfulness. Kate is incredibly busy with work, and at the same time, she takes care of the household. Her mind is always full of things to do. You're such a kind boy, Joe. If your late father were here, he definitely wouldn't have forgiven that. I really respect Kate from the bottom of my heart. So, Mom, why did you come here today? To Joe's question, his mother smiled contentedly. Then, she slowly took out a travel brochure from her bag, spread a page with a post-it note on the table, and showed it. Listen, Joe, I've always wanted to go to Niagara Falls. Won't you take me, please? My mother-in-law began to say such things excitedly out of the blue. Caught off guard by the sudden request, both Joe and I were left staring at her, mouths agape. My mother-in-law, relentless, kept pressing Joe, who was clearly flustered. Come on, Joe, you agree, right? Think of it as a way to show filial piety. Wait a minute, Mom. I'm in trouble if you suddenly say you want to go on a trip, though you can come too. Actually, I was thinking of going with Claire, but if Joe wants to go, I'm delighted to turn it into a family trip. Claire is Joe's sister. What are you talking about? Kate is here, and I can't get time off from work. But it's strange for me to pay for a trip for you and my sister, right? Not strange at all. Spending money for the family is a wonderful thing. Don't you think so, Kate? Suddenly turning to me, my mother-in-law sought my agreement. Though shaken, I firmly expressed my opinion to her. Well, using one's own money for family isn't bad, but I think imposing it on others is different. What do you mean by that? Are you saying I'm trying to extort travel expenses from Joe? I didn't mean to say it in such a harsh way, but listening to you, it sounded like you just wanted us to pay for the trip, Kate. That's terrible. I had no such intention, but you're making me out to be the villain in front of Joe. I'm so shocked. That's not. I didn't mean to call you a villain. I just answered honestly to what was asked. Okay, no need for excuses, Kate. Why are you so heartless? You must not like me, do you? My mother-in-law, visibly upset, glared at me with icy cold eyes. It always turns out like this when she comes over. She always finds some reason to demand money and then squanders it with Claire, Joe's sister. Spending money for the family sounds nice, but what my mother-in-law does is practically extortion. The situation is entirely different when Joe gives them money out of kindness. No matter that they're family, I never really liked Joe's brazen mother and sister. According to Joe, his mother and sister became so selfish after his father passed away. Joe's father died when he was in high school, and since then, they have lived as a trio. While his strict father was alive, he watched over the finances. But with his departure, there was no one to stop them, and they even freely spent the life insurance money. Also, since Claire works part-time, not as a full-time employee, her salary is low, and their life is always on the edge. So this is why she regularly visits our house, making excuses like life is tough, or I want to relax and travel somewhere to extort money from Joe. Before marrying Joe, it seemed he was at the mercy of his mother and her demands after his father's death. A sense of dependence for being cared for by his mother had bound Joe. However, since marrying me, Joe seems to be gradually realizing their true nature. Even when repeatedly asked for money, recently he's been trying hard to refuse. For Joe, that's quite a growth. Moreover, he has recently become able to speak back firmly to his mother. To my mother-in-law's spiteful words like, "You don't like me, do you?" Or "Why should I for such an uncharming daughter-in-law?" Joe responded clearly. "Just because you're my mother doesn't mean you can speak badly of Kate. Didn't Kate just answer what you asked her, Mom? You're taking Kate's side. What are you talking about?" "I think you're in the wrong here, Mom. That's so unfair. Surely Kate must have poisoned your mind against me. Poor thing, you were such a kind child before we got married." "I'm telling you that's not it. I'm saying this because I think so." Joe's firm response surprised my mother-in-law, who was not used to being talked back to like that. With a frustrated look, biting her lower lip, she said, "Fine," and left. "Kate, I'm sorry. I'd always make you feel uncomfortable." "No, it's okay. You stood up for us this time. Once we build our own home, we'll be further away. Let's not interact with Mom and them." "Then yeah, that would be a relief. If you're okay with it, Joe, I'm grateful." The place we are considering for our new home is quite far from our current apartment, improving the convenience to both of our workplaces. Our current apartment is about 5 train stations away from Joe's parental home, but the new house will be 3 times farther and require transfers. The route from the station is also complex, so if we don't give them the address, they won't be able to find our new home. It's a good chance to cleanly break off our relationship with my mother-in-law. Later, we submitted our imagined floor plan to the construction company, and the construction started 2 months later. After about half a year, our $500,000 dream home was completed. We managed to squeeze some time from our busy work schedules to pack a few days before the move. I received a call from my mother-in-law on my smartphone. Busy packing. I turned on the speaker and answered the phone. "Hello," I said, and my mother-in-law started speaking in an unusually high-pitched voice. "Kate, when are you moving? You bought a house, right? I want to live with you." Suddenly, on the phone, my mother-in-law began to say such an outrageous thing. She must have heard about our new home purchase from Joe. I could hear Claire, my sister-in-law, chuckling in the background. "That's great. We can make Kate work for us every day. Mom, you came up with a good idea." Do they think their words aren't reaching me? It's clear they plan to piggyback on our move. I imagine them planning to use me for an easy life. Honestly, I have no intention of living with them. I thought Joe felt the same, but telling them about the new house. Could it be that they're assuming we'll live together? The thought that my beloved Joe might be in league with them fills me with a bit of fear. But I have no intention of letting them have their way. They're probably trying to use me, right? If that's the case, I'll turn it around and use them. I told them the date of our move. Then my mother-in-law and Claire said, "We'll come to the apartment in the afternoon on that day. Take us with you in the car, and arrange the movers for us too." They hung up after making their demands. But of course, I have no intention of complying. For now, I'll check the facts with Joe. As I was about to go and tell Joe this, he was already standing behind me. "Joe, you were there. I came to say we should take a break, but was that Mom on the phone just now?" "Ah, yes. I was going to talk to you about it too." "Why did you tell your mother about our new home?" "It's not like that. Actually, when Mom came over last time, she seems to have seen the floor plan of our new house. She kept pestering me about it every day. So I just... Kate, I'm really sorry." "I see. So you don't intend to live with your mother, right?" "Of course not. After hearing that phone call, I'm even thinking it's better to cut ties with her." Joe's expression was filled with more anger than ever. It was the first time I had seen him this angry. From what Joe told me, my mother-in-law had seen the layout of our new home and was convinced it was a spacious house. She had pretended to be interested and called Joe repeatedly, asking him about the number of rooms and details of the facilities. But it seems that Joe is on my side, which relieved me. Then there's no problem at all. This made me determined to get my revenge on my mother-in-law. I've had enough of her saying whatever she wants, but it's goodbye to that now. I'll make sure to settle this properly. And so the day of the move arrived. Joe and I had the movers transport our things in the morning and headed to our new home in our car. By the time we finished moving everything, it was already past 1:00 p.m., checking our phones while taking a break. We saw dozens of missed calls from my mother-in-law. "She called me too," Joe said, sounding weary. Then my mother-in-law called again. I answered the phone with the speaker still on. Hello, Kate. Where are you? I told you I'd be at the apartment in the afternoon, didn't I?" Yes, you did say that. So what can I do for you?" "What do you mean? You didn't arrange for the movers. I've been waiting at home, and not a single truck has shown up. So I had to go to your apartment myself." "Is that so? Well, that's too bad. You know I didn't arrange for any movers." "What? That's not the agreement. Where is your new house?" "Huh, you really think I'd tell you?" After saying that clearly, my mother-in-law uttered a dumbfounded "huh." She probably thought that as long as Joe was there, she could always have her way. But Joe is different now. He's my precious ally, trying to cut off the bad ties with his family. Determined to release all my pent-up feelings, I spoke firmly. Just to let you know, neither Joe nor I have any intention of living with the two of you from now on. Please don't involve yourselves in our lives. What are you saying? Your opinion doesn't matter. It's up to Joe to decide. At least tell me where the new house is right now. Huh? How are you going to get here without even knowing the address? This house is in my name. I have the right to decide who lives here. If you two just barge in, it's trespassing, and I'll sue you right away. What? Trespassing? How rude to say that about your husband's family. At that point, Joe spoke up in a deathly cold voice. Family? My father, who was a family member, is already gone, isn't he? What are you saying, Joe? After hearing that last phone call, I'm utterly fed up with you two. Just having a blood relation with you is embarrassing. From now on, my family is only Dad and Kate. I no longer consider you two as my family. Wait, Joe, don't say such things. Don't bother us again, got it? With that, Joe hung up without waiting for her reply. He swiftly set his phone to block her calls. Hey, Joe, are you really okay with this? Yeah, I finally realized that Mom was just using me to her advantage. I feel completely relieved now. Joe looked truly refreshed, sincerely believing what he said. That's how we, as a couple, managed to cut off the bad ties with my mother-in-law and sister. Afterwards, they had to change their lifestyle drastically, as Joe stopped supporting them completely. Without any contact with Joe, they lost their fallback option. Later on, my sister-in-law's part-time income wasn't enough, and my mother-in-law had to start working part-time as well. Being a housewife for so long, she wasn't used to the working environment and was clumsy, often being disliked at her workplace. Meanwhile, we live a peaceful life in our new home, with no sudden visits from my mother-in-law anymore. We are truly stress-free. I'm endlessly grateful to Joe for believing in me and cutting ties with his toxic blood relatives. We might face various challenges in the future, but even then, I trust Joe, and we will support each other and walk through life together. My mother-in-law said she wants my son to marry someone else. She thinks you're too old for him because you can't have kids, my mother-in-law said, smiling at a younger woman next to her. My husband, sitting silently beside her, didn't say anything. Feeling upset, I stormed out of the room. But soon after, I regretted it and wanted to make things right. I feel really bad about marrying into this family. My name's Olivia, and I'm 38 years old. I met my husband, Sam, who's 8 years younger, through a friend. I was unsure about dating him because of our age gap, but he insisted that age doesn't matter. I love you, Olivia, he said, and we started dating. Eventually, we got married after 6 months. When Sam introduced me to his parents, his mother didn't like me because of our age difference. When you said you were bringing a woman to consider marrying, I thought she'd be young and cute. 38 years old, Sam. I mean, no offense, but think about it again. Younger women are usually better, she told Sam right in front of me. My father-in-law intervened, saying, if Sam thinks she's good, then she's good, right? Sorry for my wife's rude comments, Olivia. Eventually, we got their approval for our marriage. My father-in-law was good at smoothing over my mother-in-law's harsh words, making it seem like he didn't want any conflict. But after we got married, he often ignored issues, which was disappointing. Sam's family was well known as landowners in our small town, and my mother-in-law loved to brag about it. Even though she wasn't technically related by blood, she married into the family, just like me. This family is very wealthy, and Sam, being the favorite, has a charming and dreamy aura. My previous partner was very careful with money, which was tough. So Sam's relaxed and generous attitude towards money is quite attractive to me. Even though my mother-in-law reluctantly accepted our marriage after my father-in-law scolded her, she doesn't seem happy about it. She keeps telling me how a good wife should act, which is frustrating. She's influential among the local women and takes pride in leading the women's association and being popular. She insisted I take time off during the week to meet the association members. She believes it's important to impress them. She introduced me proudly, but some of them hinted that she might not be as well liked as she thinks. Oh, and she also told me to get a medical checkup to see if I could have children. I was a bit put off that it was her, not Sam, who ordered it, but I was also curious to know if I could get pregnant, so I agreed. Gynecological exams aren't exactly a walk in the park. Despite being important for women's health, they're uncomfortable. Does anyone else find sitting in that examination chair waiting unbearable? Despite the discomfort, my bridal health check results were good. I felt relieved when the doctor said, "You're healthy." Sam seemed worried, but he looked relieved when I told him the news. I shared the results with my mother-in-law, hoping we could finally celebrate our marriage happily. But then she said, "Good, you've passed the first hurdle." The first hurdle? What did she mean by that? I thought she'd be happier. Was she secretly hoping for bad news? As I tried to figure out how to respond, my mother-in-law surprised me with a proposal. "After you get married, let's build a duplex and live together. You'll split the down payment and mortgage. You work in administration, right? Your salary might not be high, but you should be able to handle it at your age. A duplex? Living together? Splitting the costs with me?" I felt overwhelmed by this sudden flood of suggestions. I looked at my husband sitting beside me, hoping for some support, but he remained silent. "Could you please chime in?" I asked him. I haven't discussed anything about living together with Sam. And, well, before we talk about a duplex and living arrangements, I'd like to address the comment about my job," I said, feeling a bit hurt. "You haven't discussed it." "Oh, well, Sam probably thought it was understood." "That's not good. We'd always planned that when Sam gets married, we'll all share a house and live together," my mother-in-law insisted. I felt a chill run down my spine. Always? Is she implying she drilled this idea into Sam's head by repeating it constantly? "That's correct. That's what I had in mind." "Wait, you didn't know about this? Why are you agreeing so easily?" my mother-in-law questioned. "I'm sorry, but I had no idea about this plan, and I can't make a decision without discussing it with Sam first. Can we please hold off on this for now?" I said before leaving my in-laws' house. Later, when I talked to Sam, he admitted that after we got married, he intended to build a duplex on his parents' property and live with them. I was furious that Sam hadn't told me about his plans, but when he apologized and said he forgot, I couldn't stay mad. I thought I might not find someone as kind and handsome as Sam at my age, so I ignored the warning signs and went ahead with the marriage. Looking back, I realized I should have been more cautious. I ended up going along with my mother-in-law's wishes and helped pay for a duplex where we'd live with Sam's parents. 6 months into our marriage, I found out I was pregnant. I kept it a secret from my in-laws until I was sure everything was stable. When I finally told them, they were thrilled and started discussing baby names, assuming it would be a boy, although we didn't know the gender yet. Despite feeling pressure, it's nice to see them happy. I was advised to quit my job for safety reasons, but since I help with my family's business, I have some flexibility. I decided to keep working as long as it doesn't strain me too much. My pregnancy was going smoothly, and I started feeling the baby's movements, a long-awaited joy. It's a mysterious yet happy feeling to sense a tiny life stirring inside me. I'm grateful for the joy of being a woman and experiencing this miracle. Sam, my husband, and my in-laws eagerly anticipate the baby's growth at each checkup, and I can't wait for the child's birth. I have a feeling that my relationship with my mother-in-law will improve once the baby arrives. One day, when everything seemed perfect, I noticed the baby's movements were weakening. I felt an indescribable anxiety and rushed to the hospital. The doctors gave me heartbreaking news. Something was wrong with the baby. Why? How? I was living normally. What did I do wrong? I was gripped with fear over the risks. I was hospitalized immediately, but despite the doctor's efforts, my child passed away. Just a few more months and I could have held my baby. Why did this happen so suddenly? It felt like just yesterday when the baby was moving so energetically inside me. Was it my fault? As I cried in sorrow, my husband's words pierced through my pain. "How long will you cry? It's over now, isn't it? Crying won't bring the baby back. Stop crying. I was stunned. What was Sam saying? Our child had just passed away. Even though I was taken aback by this cold side of Sam I had never seen before, my shattered state of mind left me unable to speak. Then came the day I was discharged from the hospital. Sam didn't come to pick me up. I managed to force a smile and reassure the nurses who were concerned about me going home alone. When I arrived home in a taxi, Sam, my mother-in-law, and an unfamiliar woman greeted me. "Welcome back. It's a shame, isn't it?" said my mother-in-law with a strange smile. "Yes," I responded, taking a seat on the living room couch as suggested. The seating arrangement was strange, with my mother-in-law and the woman sitting across from me on a bench, and Sam sitting next to them, showing no effort to comfort me or make eye contact. As my mother-in-law spoke, my heart sank. "We've talked it over with Sam. Since you can't have children anymore, we don't see the point in keeping you as our daughter-in-law. We're thinking of having this other girl marry Sam instead." Hearing those words while still reeling from the shock of losing my baby, tears filled my eyes. But I refused to let myself break down. I had to stay strong, telling myself that crying would mean giving up. I kept my head down, unable to look up. Ignoring my distress, my mother-in-law continued heartlessly. "If you're willing to work and support our family instead of having children, we might consider letting you stay. What do you think? Can I count on you to take care of us if they leave me behind?" Confusion and disbelief washed over me. Without thinking, I looked at my husband for support. But when our eyes met, Sam quickly looked away. Beside him, a woman who seemed triumphant stared back at me. I remembered her as Sam's childhood friend, introduced to me at our wedding. Seeing that my husband wouldn't even meet my gaze, I realized he's not on my side. He won't help me. A chill ran down my spine, and strangely, my mind became clear. They must have discussed this during my hospitalization. They planned to replace me, the woman who can't have children, with a younger wife who can bear an heir. If I stay here, I'll only suffer. There's nothing for me here anymore. With newfound clarity, I addressed Sam. "I understand where you stand. Let's get a divorce. Please, go and live happily with your new wife." Leaving the house, I returned to my family home. My parents, surprised but warmly welcoming, were already aware of my miscarriage. They were outraged by the cruelty I had faced so soon after leaving the hospital. Their warm reaction was a relief after everything, and I ended up crying a lot that day. Exhausted from tears, I fell asleep. However, the next day, my mother-in-law and husband, who had shown such cruelty in driving me out, unexpectedly showed up at my family home. At first, my mother dealt with them normally, but once she realized who they were, she refused to engage with them. Then, they started incessantly ringing the doorbell, shouting, "We've canceled the divorce. Come back now. You see, my family runs a barbecue restaurant, a well-known spot that serves a globally famous brand of beer. It's frequented by many celebrities and athletes who enjoy our delicious food. However, my husband's family comes from an old, respected background, and they looked down on our family, thinking that running a restaurant was somehow shady. They had this outdated belief that restaurant businesses were inferior, and they saw our family as less well-off. We even invited them to dine with us once before the marriage, but they declined, saying, "Beef. We always eat at certain places. Eating meat from other restaurants gives me heartburn. Sorry." During the pre-wedding meetings, they indirectly belittled my family with remarks like, "Oh, you run a restaurant, right? That's so old-fashioned. Oh, I see, from your parents' generation. Dealing with beef, huh? Well, respectable families don't engage in such businesses." It hurt to see my parents, who had worked hard to raise me, being treated this way, but they brushed it off with a laugh, saying there are always people with narrow mindsets. On the day I left after the divorce, my husband and mother-in-law happened to see our restaurant being featured on TV. Up until then, they had shown no interest and considered my family beneath them. But they panicked when they saw the restaurant described as running its own farm that produces top-quality beef, enjoying extreme popularity with meat exported worldwide, being highly successful and lucrative. Suddenly, they tried to cozy up to me, saying, "If your family were wealthy, we wouldn't have talked about divorce. We're sorry for yesterday. We weren't thinking clearly. Please come back." After all their talk about children and heirs, was it really all about money in the end? My husband Sam and his family never asked much about my job, so I had simply told them I worked in office administration for my family's company, leading them to believe I was a low-paid and incompetent employee. Consequently, they probably assumed that asking me to pay for the house would make me give up on the marriage. In reality, I managed the meat export division of my parents' company, earning a substantial income for an office worker. Fortunately, I had saved up a good amount due to getting married later in life, allowing me to provide the money they demanded. I am also a major shareholder in the company and aspire to eventually take over my father's position to further expand the business. Despite this, they had never shown any interest or asked me about my role until it was highlighted on TV, leading to an overnight change in their treatment of me. Despite incessantly talking about wanting children, it became apparent that money was their primary concern. Their shallowness appalled me. Finally, my father, who had been silently observing the situation, lost his temper and kicked Sam and his parents out. "Thank you, Dad. You saved me," I said. My father, still seething with anger, began drinking and cursing at them. He had me explain everything from before the marriage without holding back any details, believing I couldn't handle this alone. My father promptly contacted a lawyer he knew, leading to a demand for damages since I was unjustly evicted. We also asked for reimbursement for the housing funds I had provided during our cohabitation. The claim was acknowledged, and it was decided that I would receive a refund for the expenses I covered. However, Sam alone couldn't repay the loan I had taken out, so his family home had to be sold. They had built a lavish house on rural property just for show, leaving a considerable mortgage remaining even after the sale. Moreover, the house was filled with the eccentricities of Sam's mother, making finding a buyer willing to accept it as is doubtful, suggesting that disposal could take time. Fortunately, they managed to sell some land they owned separately, allowing me to recoup my money first, which was a relief. At this point, I was grateful for marrying into a landlord's family. Sam and his parents were forced to leave their beloved two-family home and now seemed to be struggling in a rented apartment, facing difficulty repaying their loan. As for the woman who was planning to marry Sam, she was only interested because she thought she'd live in a big house and that his family was wealthy. But as soon as she found out they were going to lose the house and still be in debt, she disappeared. It was probably the best decision for her because if she had married him, she might have been pressured to have a child and forced to work due to her young age. News travels fast in this rural area. Gossip spreads like wildfire, especially when it involves a well-known family like Sam's. People are buzzing with interest, commenting on how poorly they treated me and how they used to flaunt their big house, but are now in debt and living in an apartment. With both the wife and potential new wife gone, their family line might end with this generation. It's incredible how accurate the rumors are and makes you wonder who's been watching all this. The power of a rural network is quite something. Now my bossy mother-in-law, who used to act like she owned the place, sneaks around even when shopping, worried about people's stares. My parents remind me, "We warned you not to marry into a family that would insist on testing if you could get pregnant before marriage, didn't we?" And brush off the situation. They even console me in their own way, saying, "Olivia just rushed into marriage a bit. Don't worry about it. It's fine if you stay home." They try to be understanding in their own way. Despite the troubles of being kicked out and going to court, I can see they're happy to have their daughter back home. I'm grateful for their warmth. It feels like I was just dreaming or living a nightmare during my married life. But now I'm free. I may have a divorce behind me, but I'm still in my 30s. I haven't given up on marriage. Once things settle down, I plan to work hard to find a new partner. But for now, maybe I'll focus on doing good things for my parents.
The crystal champagne glasses clinked around me as I stood in my family's grand ballroom. my hand tightly gripping Daniel's. The annual Harrison Foundation Gala was in full swing, Boston's elite mingling and networking in their finest evening wear. But all eyes were on us, or more specifically, on the simple silver band adorning my left hand. A teacher. My mother's perfectly painted lips barely moved as she hissed the word. Alexandra, please tell me this is some sort of joke. My name is Alexandra Harrison, and at 25, I was about to shatter my family's carefully constructed world. The Harrisons weren't just wealthy, we were old money, Boston aristocracy, with an investment firm that had been shaping the city's financial landscape for 3 generations. Daniel is a high school physics teacher, I said, keeping my voice steady despite the trembling in my chest. And we're getting married in June. My father's face darkened as he looked Daniel up and down, taking in his rented tuxedo and modest watch. To Charles Harrison Iley, these weren't just fashion choices, they were damning evidence of what he considered a fatal flaw, being poor. Outside. Now, my father's command cut through the ambient chatter of the gala. Without waiting for a response, he turned and strode toward his study, my mother following in his wake. Daniel squeezed my hand. Want me to come with you? I shook my head, forcing a smile. I need to handle this alone. The walk to my father's study felt like a march to the executioner's block. The sounds of the gala faded behind me as I made my way down the familiar hallway, past the portraits of Harrison patriarchs who had built our family's legacy. My grandfather's stern face seemed to judge me from his gilt frame as I passed. Inside the study, my father stood behind his massive mahogany desk, the same desk where he taught me about investment strategies when I was 12. My mother perched on the leather sofa, her champagne glass now filled with something stronger. Have you completely lost your mind? My father's voice was quiet, which was always more dangerous than his shouting. A public school teacher. Do you have any idea what this will do to our reputation? Daniel is brilliant, I said, standing my ground. He's dedicated to his students, passionate about education. Passionate about our money, you mean? My mother interjected. Really, Alexandra, how naive can you be? The irony of her words almost made me laugh. If they only knew that Daniel had tried to talk me out of the engagement when he learned about my family's wealth, worried that it would change our relationship. He doesn't want our money, I said firmly. In fact, he's the one who suggested a prenup. My father scoffed. Of course he did. He's playing the long game, making himself look noble. I wasn't born yesterday, Alexandra. No, I agreed, feeling a surge of courage. You were born into wealth and privilege, just like I was. But Daniel built himself up from nothing. He worked his way through college, earned his master's degree while teaching full-time. Spare us the Hallmark movie plot, my mother cut in. This isn't about his inspiring backstory. This is about the future of the Harrison name. The future? I felt my careful composure starting to crack. You mean the future where I take over Harrison Investment Group and marry someone from your approved list of suitable bachelors? Someone like Thomas Wellington Ivy, perhaps? My father's eyes narrowed. Thomas would be an excellent match. The Wellington Group's merger with Harrison would create one of the largest investment firms on the East Coast. I don't love Thomas. Love. My father spat the word like it was poison. You think love built this? He gestured to the room around us, to the wealth that had defined our family for generations. Strategy built this. Smart alliances. Understanding your place in the greater scheme. I took a deep breath, steadying myself. I'm marrying Daniel. I don't need your approval, but I'd like your blessing. My father walked around the desk, stopping directly in front of me. If you marry that man, you are no longer a Harrison. No trust fund, no inheritance, no position at the firm. You'll be cut off completely. Is that what you want? The threat hung in the air between us. The Harrison Trust Fund wasn't just money. It was security, opportunity, power. Walking away from it meant starting from nothing. I lifted my chin, meeting his gaze. Yes, if those are my options. Alexandra, my mother stood up, her voice taking on the wheedling tone she used when she wanted something. Think about what you're doing. You've worked so hard, gotten your MBA, prepared to take over the firm. Would you throw all that away for some teacher? I'm not throwing anything away, I said. I'm choosing my own path. Then you choose it with nothing, my father said coldly. Harrison Investment Group will never be yours. You'll never see a penny of your trust fund. You want to live like common people. Fine, get out. My mother gasped. Charles. No, Margaret, she's made her choice. He turned his back on me, walking to the window. You have until morning to clear out your things from the house. After that, you're no longer welcome here. I stood there for a moment, waiting for them to change their minds, to show some sign that their love for me was stronger than their pride. But my father remained at the window, and my mother simply sank back onto the sofa, lifting her glass to her lips with a trembling hand. Goodbye then, I said softly, turning to leave. At the door, I paused. You know, grandfather used to tell me that true wealth isn't about money. It's about having the courage to build something meaningful. My father's shoulders stiffened, but he didn't turn around. I walked back to the ballroom, where Daniel was waiting anxiously. One look at my face told him everything he needed to know. I'm so sorry, Alex, he said, pulling me close. We don't have to do this. Your future, your family's company. I silenced him with a kiss, not caring about the scandalized whispers around us. You are my future. The rest we'll build together. We left the gala without saying goodbye to anyone. As we drove away from my family's estate in Daniel's beat-up Honda Civic, I watched the lights of my childhood home fade in the rearview mirror. I should have felt scared, starting over with nothing but my education and determination. Instead, I felt strangely free. What my parents didn't know, what no one knew, was that I had been preparing for this possibility. The past 3 years, while working at Harrison Investment Group, I had been developing my own investment strategy, focusing on emerging technologies and sustainable energy. I had also been building connections, quiet ones, with people who saw the future the same way I did. I had $50,000 saved in a private account, not much by Harrison standards, but enough to start something. And I had an idea, one that would either prove my parents absolutely right about me or show them just how wrong they'd been. Daniel pulled up to our small apartment, my new home. Are you sure about this? He asked one more time. It's not too late to go back. I looked at him, this brilliant, kind man who taught physics to inner-city kids because he believed education could change lives. Who had supported my dreams even when they seemed impossible. I've never been more sure of anything, I said. Besides, they didn't just give me an ultimatum, they gave me a challenge. A challenge? I smiled, thinking about the plan that was already forming in my mind. They think I can't succeed without their money and connections. Fine. I'll build something bigger than Harrison Investment Group ever was. And I'll do it my way. Little did I know then just how prophetic those words would prove to be. The next 10 years would test everything I believed about myself, about business, and about what it means to create true wealth. But that night, sitting in Daniel's old car, holding the hand of the man I loved, I felt nothing but excitement for the journey ahead. What I didn't realize was that this journey would eventually lead me right back to Harrison Investment Group, but not in the way anyone could have predicted. 10 years can change everything. I sat in my corner office on the 50th floor of a gleaming downtown skyscraper, looking at the email that had just appeared in my inbox. The subject line read, Harrison Investment Group seeking strategic partnership. You need to see this, my CFO, Sarah Chin, said from the doorway. She walked in, tablet in hand. Harrison Investment Group's financials just went public. They're in worse shape than we thought. I took the tablet, scanning the numbers. The story they told was grim. Harrison Investment Group, once the crown jewel of Boston's financial district, was hemorrhaging clients. Their old-school investment approach had failed to adapt to changing markets. They'd missed the tech boom, dismissed sustainable energy as a passing fad, and clung to traditional investments until it was too late. Their stock has dropped 60% in the last year, Sarah continued. They're looking for a buyer. I leaned back in my chair, memories flooding back. 10 years ago, I'd walked away from that company, from my inheritance, with nothing but determination and a dream. Now, as CEO of Phoenix Ventures, I controlled a $500 million investment firm that specialized in exactly the kinds of innovative technologies my father had dismissed. Alex? Sarah's voice snapped me back to the present. What do you want to do? I looked out my window at the Boston skyline. Somewhere out there, my father was probably sitting in his study, trying to figure out how it had all gone wrong. Set up a meeting, I said. But not with my father. I want to meet with the board directly. The last decade had been a whirlwind. After leaving my family, I'd thrown myself into building Phoenix Ventures from the ground up. Starting with my saved $50,000, I'd focus on identifying promising tech startups and sustainable energy companies that traditional firms overlooked. Daniel had supported me every step of the way, taking extra tutoring jobs to help with our living expenses while I got the company off the ground. We lived in a tiny apartment, saved every penny, and slowly built our dream. My first big break came 2 years in, when one of our early investments, a small solar technology company, was bought by a major energy corporation. The return was substantial enough to attract serious investors, and from there, Phoenix Ventures grew exponentially. We had our struggles, of course. The first few years were lean, and there were nights I lay awake wondering if I'd made a terrible mistake. But with each success, each correct market prediction, our reputation grew. I never used the Harrison name to open doors. As far as the business world was concerned, I was just Alexandra Chen, having taken Daniel's last name when we married. My success was my own, built without my family's connections or influence. Now, a decade later, Phoenix Ventures was known for its forward-thinking investment strategy and impressive returns. We had offices in 3 cities, a team of brilliant analysts, and a portfolio that read like a who's who of emerging technologies. And my father's company wanted to talk about a strategic partnership. The meeting was set for the following week. I arrived early, walking into the Harrison Investment Group's boardroom for the first time in 10 years. The portraits of past CEOs still hung on the walls, my grandfather, my father, and the empty space where my portrait should have been. The board members filed in, many of them the same men who had attended that fateful gala a decade ago. They didn't recognize me at first. Why would they? The Alexandra Harrison they remembered was a young heiress in designer dresses. The woman before them now was a successful CEO in a power suit, known for her shrewd business acumen. My father entered last, stopping short when he saw me. He had aged considerably, his hair now completely gray, new lines etched deeply around his mouth. For a moment, I saw something flicker in his eyes. Recognition, shock, perhaps even pride. But it was quickly replaced by his usual mask of control. "What is this?" he demanded, looking at the board chairman. "Mr. Harrison," the chairman said carefully, "this is Alexandra Chen, CEO of Phoenix Ventures. They're interested in discussing acquisition terms." Acquisition. My father's face reddened. "You mean takeover? And you didn't think to inform me who would be attending this meeting?" "I asked them not to," I said, keeping my voice professional. "I wanted the board to hear our proposal without preconceptions." Sarah began presenting our offer, a fair but firm valuation of Harrison Investment Group, with terms that would protect the employees while transitioning the company into the modern era. As she spoke, I watched my father's face. I could see him struggling to reconcile the daughter he'd dismissed with the businesswoman before him. The numbers Sarah was presenting were impossible to argue with. Phoenix Ventures had the capital, the strategy, and the vision to save his company. When Sarah finished, there was a long silence. Finally, my father spoke, his voice rough. "May I have a moment alone with Ms. Chen?" The board members filed out, leaving us alone in the room where I'd spent countless hours learning about business at my father's knee. "You did all this to prove me wrong?" he asked quietly. I shook my head. "No, Dad. I did this to prove myself right. Everything you taught me about business, about identifying opportunities, about building something lasting, I took those lessons and applied them to the future, not the past." He walked to the window, looking out at the city skyline. "Your grandfather, he would have understood what you've built. He was an innovator too in his time." He turned back to me. I was the one who forgot that innovation is part of our legacy. "It's not too late," I said. "Phoenix Ventures doesn't want to dismantle Harrison Investment Group. We want to help it evolve, to honor its history while embracing the future." "And Daniel?" he asked. "Is he still?" "Still teaching physics," I said, allowing myself a small smile. "Still changing lives. We have 2 kids now, your grandchildren, but you've never met them. Emma's 7, Michael's 5. Something broke in my father's expression. "Alexandra, I know," I said softly. "Me too." The acquisition went through smoothly. The board voted unanimously to accept our offer, recognizing that Phoenix Ventures represented their best chance at survival. My father, to everyone's surprise, supported the decision. In the end, we didn't just save Harrison Investment Group. We transformed it. The combined companies, under the Phoenix Harrison Group banner, became one of the most influential investment firms in the country, known for balancing traditional wisdom with innovative strategy. My father stayed on as an advisor, though he stepped down as CEO. Slowly, cautiously, we began rebuilding our relationship. He and my mother met their grandchildren. They came to dinner at our house, not the mansion I could have afforded, but the comfortable home Daniel and I had chosen in a good school district. One evening, after a particularly successful quarter, my father and I were sitting in my office, looking out at the city lights. You know, he said, your grandfather used to say something about true wealth being about the courage to build something meaningful. I finished. I remember. He nodded, looking at me with what I finally recognized as pride. He would have been proud of you, Alexandra. We both are, even if I was too stubborn to see it sooner. I thought about the journey from that night at the gala to this moment, about all the lessons learned, the bridges burned and rebuilt, the legacy redefined. The funny thing is, I said, I'm not sure I would change anything. Every struggle, every setback, it all led to this, to building something that's truly mine, truly meaningful. My father was quiet for a moment. You know, I always thought I was protecting our family's legacy. But you understood something I didn't. Legacy isn't about preserving the past. It's about building a better future. Later that night, as I drove home to Daniel and our children, I thought about wealth, real wealth, not the kind that sits in trust funds or hangs in portraits on boardroom walls, but the kind that comes from having the courage to follow your heart and the determination to build something meaningful. My children would inherit a different kind of legacy than the one I was born into. They would learn that true success isn't about what you're given, but what you build. That love is worth more than money, and that sometimes losing everything is the first step to gaining something better. As I pulled into our driveway, I saw Daniel teaching Emma about constellations in the backyard, Michael perched on his shoulders. The sight made me smile, remembering that night 10 years ago when I chose this life over my inheritance. It was the best investment I ever made.
I'm Sarah, a 40-year-old mother of two, wedded to my rock, John, for almost 2 decades. Our life's been a thrilling yet challenging journey, and it's the companionship in these times that truly counts. However, things took a turn with the unexpected arrival of my younger brother Tom, a 32-year-old who's still figuring life out, often making impulsive decisions. It was a typical Sunday, with our family congregating at Mom's house, a place brimming with childhood nostalgia. As we were savoring Mom's delightful roast and her tales, Tom barged in, unexpectedly accompanied by a young, pregnant woman named Lisa, his fiancée. This sudden revelation, amidst a peaceful family lunch, caught everyone off guard. Lisa, youthful and visibly pregnant, was dressed more for a party than a family gathering. This news stunned everyone, especially my kids, Emily and Max, who were curious and bewildered by their new aunt-to-be and her sparkling attire. Tom's announcement of his engagement and impending fatherhood brought a tense silence to the room, only broken by John's attempt at congratulatory words. Tom declared their plan to stay at Mom's temporarily, which visibly worried her. It was like observing someone unwittingly edge closer to a precipice. That night, John and I discussed the situation. He expressed his concern about Tom's irresponsible behavior and the strain it was putting on my mother. The following days were chaotic, with Tom and Lisa overstepping boundaries, while Mom tirelessly catered to their needs, visibly worn down by their lack of gratitude. One evening, I found Mom in the kitchen, her fatigue evident. I'd urged her to stand up for herself, but her maternal instincts towards Tom and his unborn child made it impossible for her to turn them away. I felt an overwhelming urge to confront them, to expose their exploitation of Mom's kindness, but I restrained myself. In family dynamics, love often means overlooking the obvious faults, even when it's detrimental. This became our new reality: Tom and Lisa, the inconsiderate house guests, and the rest of us tiptoeing around to maintain harmony in a home that now seemed constricting. Our days were upended by Tom and Lisa's presence. Each morning was greeted with Lisa's loud grievances about her discomforts or cravings. She'd saunter into the kitchen, still in her nightwear, demanding breakfast without a hint of courtesy. "Sarah, whip up some pancakes, would you? The baby's craving them. She'd order without a please. I'd clench my teeth, trying to maintain composure. Sure, Lisa. Just after I prepare Emily and Max for school. Tom was equally unhelpful, idly lounging, his attention fixed on his laptop or video games, occasionally shouting for food without a glance our way. Mom attempted to mediate, reminding me they were young, but I couldn't overlook their blatant sense of entitlement. As Lisa's due date neared, the situation worsened. She left clutter everywhere, engaged in endless phone gossip, while dishes and laundry piled up. One day, I reached my breaking point. Finding her in the living room, feet propped on the coffee table, I confronted her. Lisa, this isn't a hotel. You can't just expect everyone to clean up after you. Her response was a dismissive eye roll. Chill, Sarah. I'm pregnant, remember? Tom's defense was swift but infuriating. Lay off her, Sarah. She's carrying my child. Mom intervened, pleading for peace, but the unfairness was glaring. She was exhausting herself for their sake, yet remained unheeded. They treated our home like a free-for-all, leaving messes and responsibilities for Mom, and even had the audacity to plan an extravagant wedding, expecting Mom to foot the bill. Their disregard for Mom's well-being became intolerable. Even after the birth of their son Alex, their behavior didn't change. One morning, I walked in to find Mom tackling a pile of dirty dishes, while Lisa idly watched TV and Tom was absorbed in his phone. I asked Mom why she was burdened with all the work, but the answer was all too familiar. The cycle of disregard and exploitation seemed endless, leaving me grappling with frustration and concern for my overburdened mother. I questioned Mom, trying to maintain composure, but her response only added to my frustration. Lisa needs to rest, and well, Tom's busy, she said. Turning to Lisa, I pointed out her lack of contribution, but she retorted with the excuse of her recent childbirth. Tom, disengaged as ever, defended her, claiming ignorance of their hardships. I was incredulous at their audacity. Sitting idle and burdening Mom was their idea of being busy? Mom attempted to diffuse the tension, claiming she didn't mind the extra work, but my patience had worn thin. I'd argued that Mom was not their servant, but my words fell on deaf ears. Tom and Lisa continued their routine, frequently leaving the house, burdening Mom with their child, and flaunting their extravagant purchases. Discovering a receipt for an expensive dress, I confronted them about the financial burden they were placing on Mom. Tom's indifferent shrug and Lisa's smug attitude were infuriating. They saw nothing wrong in exploiting Mom's generosity. Alone with Mom, I pleaded with her to see the situation for what it was, exploitation. But her maternal instincts blinded her to their irresponsibility. I can't abandon them, especially not Alex, she said. Despite my efforts to persuade her, she remained steadfast in her belief that they needed her help. Feeling helpless, I watched the family dynamic deteriorate. Tom and Lisa continued their parasitic behavior, while Mom, ever the selfless mother, couldn't recognize the extent of their exploitation. The situation reached a breaking point when Mom suddenly fell ill. One day, she was her usual self. The next, she was bedridden and weak. I stayed by her side, offering hopeful words, but inside, I felt a growing anger towards Tom and Lisa, who were conspicuously absent, likely squandering more of Mom's resources. I expressed my outrage, but Mom's response was tinged with sadness. They have their own lives, Sarah, she said, her voice weary. Her condition worsened, and eventually, Mom passed away quietly in the night. I was there, but Tom and Lisa were absent, likely enjoying themselves, oblivious to our family's loss. The funeral was a blur, a mixture of grief and resentment towards my absent brother and his partner. Their absence during Mom's final moments and their continued disregard weighed heavily on me, underscoring the profound disconnection within our family. I recall the moment Tom and Lisa arrived at the funeral, their appearance more fitting for a celebration than a solemn occasion. Lisa's attire was notably inappropriate, drawing murmurs from the crowd. John offered me a comforting squeeze of the hand, trying to provide some support. Post-service, Tom urgently wanted to discuss Mom's will. His insistence, so soon after our loss, left me aghast. He claimed Mom had left the house to him, a statement that seemed incredibly presumptuous and insensitive given the circumstances. My protests about respecting Mom's memory fell on deaf ears. Tom was adamant about his entitlement. The following day, I visited Mom's house to gather her belongings, but I was met by Lissa's sneering face at the door. She coldly informed me that the house was now theirs, claiming Tom had inherited everything. Tom's appearance, confirming the claim with a smug grin, sparked a mixture of anger and disbelief in me. I felt alienated, standing at the threshold of my childhood home, now claimed by my callous brother and his wife. Determined to seek justice, I found myself nervously entering the notary's office. The whole ordeal, grappling with Mom's loss, and now this dispute with Tom, seemed like a nightmare. Mr. Jacobs, the notary and an old family friend, greeted me with a solemn expression. As I voiced my doubts about Tom's claim, Tom and Lisa arrived, exuding arrogance. Mr. Jacobs began reading the will, and my anxiety peaked. When he reached the part about Tom, he announced a bequest of only $5,000 to him, a revelation that visibly shocked Tom. Mr. Jacobs then continued, to my relief and surprise, declaring that Mom had left the family home and the remainder of her estate to me. This unexpected turn of events was a small solace in the midst of our family strife, offering a glimmer of hope amidst the grief and turmoil that had enveloped us since Mom's passing. The revelation in Mr. Jacobs' office left me feeling a mix of relief and vindication. Lissa, on the other hand, was incensed, incredulous at the idea that they weren't left the house. Mr. Jacobs informed us that Mom had made this last will only a month ago, due to her concerns about being pressured by certain family members. Tom's reaction was one of rage and denial, but there was a sense of justice in the air. Mom had seen through their exploitation. Tom accused me of turning Mom against him, while Lissa threatened legal action. Mr. Jacobs warned them about the possible legal repercussions if coercion was proven in any earlier will. Their confidence seemed to falter at this. As Tom and Lisa left the notary's office in a huff, I stayed behind to express my gratitude to Mr. Jacobs. I left feeling a whirlwind of emotions: sorrow for losing Mom, relief that her final wishes were honored, and anger at Tom and Lisa's audacity. Back at the house, Tom confronted me, infuriated by the disparity in our inheritance. I tried to explain that this was Mom's decision, likely influenced by their continuous financial demands. His frustration was palpable as he demanded to know why Mom would screw him over like this. Then I found Mom's letter tucked away in a drawer. It explained everything. Mom had initially set aside an equal share for both of us, but as Tom and Lisa's demands increased, she began to deduct from his portion. By the time she wrote her last will, Tom had already received most of his share through these advances. Tom was shocked and in denial, unable to accept that his actions had led to this outcome. I was firm, my patience thinning, as I confronted him with the reality of the situation. He sat, overwhelmed by his own actions, pondering the gravity of what he had done. The weight of his choices and their impact on Mom's final decisions was a harsh reality he now had to face. As I set the letter down, a blend of pity and frustration washed over me. "You've only yourself to blame, Tom. This was your doing," I said, watching him leave the house, a shadow of the man he once was. There was a sense of justice in his departure, but it was tinged with sadness for a family now fractured by both grief and selfishness. The house, previously a battleground of family conflicts, now stood in a haunting silence. Tom and Lisa had left, severing all ties with me. It was a relief to be freed from their tumult, yet it also left me to grapple with the fallout of their actions. As I sat in the living room, lost in thought, my phone rang. It was Jenna, bringing news of Tom. He was job hunting in town, and Lisa seemed to be living a single life, with no sign of their son, Alex. Anger surged within me at their reckless disregard for their child. Jenna's voice broke through my fury, suggesting that maybe there was something I could do. Her words ignited a spark of determination in me. I had to fight for Alex. He deserved a better life. The next day, I met with a lawyer, Ms. Rivera, a straightforward and determined woman. I laid out my case, my resolve firm. I want to pursue custody of Alex. He's in a toxic environment, I told her. Ms. Rivera, sizing up the situation, agreed to help, though she warned it wouldn't be easy. The ensuing legal battle was arduous, with Tom and Lisa oscillating between cooperation and hostility. But I remained steadfast. John's support was unwavering, his arms a haven of comfort after each challenging day in court. "You're doing the right thing, Sarah. It's hard but necessary," he reassured me. The day I was granted temporary custody of Alex was filled with mixed emotions. He was a sweet, bewildered boy, but gradually he began to adapt to our family. Emily and Max quickly grew fond of him, and he brought a new joy into our home. Tom's reaction was one of anger and resignation. "You've taken everything, Sarah," he accused. I stood firm, knowing I was protecting Alex, a responsibility Tom had neglected. As Tom walked away, I realized our relationship might never recover, that this was about Alex's well-being, not our sibling rivalry. With Alex, life took on a new dimension. There were challenges, of course, but also moments of laughter and love. He was slowly becoming a part of our family, and I was resolute in making his presence permanent. Looking back, I knew despite the hardships and challenges, we were building a brighter future, one filled with hope and the love of a family reunited under new circumstances. Making the decision to bring Alex into our family was undeniably the right choice. It marked a new chapter for us, an opportunity to heal, grow, and foster a future brimming with love and stability. This was the legacy I yearned to create, a vivid departure from the selfishness and discord that once loomed over us. Our home, once a symbol of family strife, was now alive with laughter and the joyful sounds of children. Alex had seamlessly integrated into our lives, his presence a beacon of happiness. One evening, as I tucked him into bed, his innocent question about staying with us forever warmed my heart. "Yes, Alex, you're part of our family now," I assured him, and his contented smile was all the confirmation I needed. John, standing by the door, shared a look of pride and fulfillment. "He's really fitting in," he observed, and I couldn't help but feel a sense of achievement. We were providing Alex with the life he deserved. The next day brought the exhilarating news. The court had granted me full custody of Alex. Overwhelmed with emotion, I thanked Miss Rivera profusely. The family's reaction to the news was a beautiful sight. Emily and Max embraced Alex, and even John was visibly moved. "We're a complete family now," he said, voice laden with emotion. The journey had been tumultuous, but it strengthened us. While I occasionally thought of Tom and Lisa, hoping they would find their path, my priority was our children and our family. In the following months, Alex flourished, transforming from a timid child into one filled with confidence and joy. One day, while playing in the garden, he presented me with a dandelion, proudly announcing his wish for us to be together forever. Holding him close, I assured him that his wish had indeed come true. Looking around at my family, I felt an overwhelming sense of peace. We had navigated through the storm and emerged more robust. Our future was a canvas of hope, love, and endless possibilities. This was our story, a testament to the resilience of family and the transformative power of love. It was a future bright with promise, and we were more than ready to embrace it wholeheartedly.